All right, and we're live. You guys know what it was? This is hilarious. It was power cycling, or not power cycling, yeah, power cycling the microphone. So, funnily enough, well, not even power cycling the microphone, cycling the phantom power switch on our mixer for the microphone, because actually powering down the entire mixer and then powering it back up completely didn't address the issue, but pressing the button and then pressing it again did, for whatever freaking reason. I can't even begin to fathom this stuff. It's too complicated for me because I'm stupid, don't know anything. Anyway, I'm sure there's an explanation for this.
That was so depressing.
I know.
I'm stupid, don't know anything.
But these people are all listening to me. What does that make them?
Wow, what's with... Okay, we need to start
I know,
talking
but
about
that's
Oculus.
depressing.
Everything's depressing.
I know. Whenever the show is late, I'm depressed. I was talking to him about this offline, and I'm like, I know you guys hate it when the show is late. We hate it when the show is late too, because like I feel personally responsible for all the hours of time that are being wasted while people sit and wait for us, and that's terrible. And we went as far as to buy completely new sets of all of our equipment so that everything, the camera, the lens, the microphone, the boom pole, the mixer, the compressor, the computer, everything stays in this room and we don't touch it other than to live stream. That's how far we went to make sure that our show was on time for you guys. And yet, here we are, and we still have these issues, and I'm really, really sorry. But enough of that. Let's get this thing started, shall we? The big news this week is obviously Facebook's acquisition of Oculus. Oh, this is hilarious. Twitch is like, confirmed, WAN show acquired by Facebook. No, not so much.
Our setup would have probably worked if we had that much money.
And you know what? That's one of the positive things to take away from this whole thing. We're going to get into it in more depth later, but we do have some other initial topics here that I just want to sort of throw at you guys that we will be talking about. So NVIDIA had a call earlier this week where they talked about their plans with respect to DirectX 12 and how that figures into their overall strategy. You know what's funny is I don't think NVIDIA ever actually outright said we are not going to support Mantle, no matter how open it is. In fact, I think they still haven't said that. But no. They also pushed a big update for NVIDIA Shield this week, which is a huge deal. Allows things like off-site game stream. So we'll get into more details on that later. But like
Good luck scrolling through the document.
Yeah, 4 or 5 pages of our document are all Oculus this week, so it's going to be kind of a big deal. NVIDIA also launched the Titan Z. Bitcoins are now considered property. And without further ado, let's get this intro done so we can get this show on the road. Whoa, what's that? We're going to PAX East, sponsored by Intel and Corsair. Also sponsoring this week's episode of The WAN Show is Hotspot Shield. With their Elite service, which you can get 20% off of, by the way, with offer code Linus, you can make it more difficult for people to figure out who you are online. You can actually get access to services that are otherwise geographically locked. And, I mean, those are, I guess, the main benefits of a VPN.
You could probably stop Facebook from tracking you.
Yeah, and you can do all that relatively inexpensively and easily. All right, so let's get into our first topic here. Let's just do something before, like, the train wreck.
Really?
Let's do one topic.
I don't even think so.
You don't even think so?
I don't
You want to
even
get...
think
Okay, let's do this
I
thing.
honestly just think we should jump right in.
Okay, so the role of Linus over the next 45 minutes or so will be played by... I'm going to go get Jeff. So you go ahead and get started.
You have input on this.
Do I? Well,
You've talked to me a little bit.
Jeff has input too.
Okay.
And I'm not letting you make Jeff's voice not heard.
I did murder him earlier.
Nope.
Literally.
Nope.
Okay, well, as all of you know at this point, I'm sure, and if you don't, how... What? No. So, Oculus was acquired by Facebook for $400 million cash and what equated to a total with that cash of $2 billion in cash and stock auctions. So they got $2 billion, kind of, because a lot of it's Facebook stock, which went down a lot recently, resulting in about a negative $112 million change on that deal, although everyone suspects that Facebook stock is just going to bounce back. So it probably actually won't matter in the end, and they're not exactly selling all this stock immediately anyways, because they're probably going to have to sell it over time, and then blah, 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 so there's tons of speculation around that, so whatever. It was a $2 billion deal. We'll figure out how much that equates to in the end, and I'm sure by that time, no one will really care anyways. There's a bunch of negative and positive angles you can take on this. So I'm going to go through the negative ones first. At least these are angles that I've seen people take already. There's obviously some that'll pop up later on that we haven't talked about yet, but the negative angles, the main ones I've seen is people on the internet don't trust acquisitions. Generally, whenever there's an acquisition, people on the internet just hate it. All right, moving on. They said they weren't interested in being acquired before. There's actually quite a few quotes of them saying, oh, we won't have to be acquired by some big company, and that's a good thing, blah, 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 blah. And now they're acquired by a huge company, so that's interesting, I guess. Moving on. Being acquired due to Kickstarter success feels like betrayal. Notch actually echoed this by saying that he didn't donate $10,000 just as a seed fund so that they could be acquired by a huge company. That's not an exact quote, but it's something along those lines. We'll get more into that later. The internet, kind of as a glommed whole, obviously not the entire thing, but just generally the voice of the internet dislikes Facebook. So this
the vocal minority, because I mean, if you look at Facebook's user base,
it's huge.
Obviously, the whole internet doesn't refuse to use Facebook,
but
that
what a lot of people see as the internet,
the popular opinion,
the voice
of the internet folk.
Yeah, not necessarily the action, but the voice of the internet.
Yeah.
Facebook is deemed as creepy by people like Notch. Again, we'll get into Notch's comments on this later. People wanted Oculus to stick with its homebrew roots, and signing up with Facebook is not exactly sticking with homebrew roots. Why didn't some other company buy them? And there's been a whole bunch of things like Valve and all these other things which may or may not make any sense at all, but we'll get into that later again. Really? WhatsApp is worth 10 times as much as Oculus almost? We'll get into that later, and all the comments of, oh my god, Farmville 3D, and Facebook pop-ups all over your face, and all that kind of stuff. Again, we'll get into that later. Now there's the positive angles that I've seen a lot of people take. It will drive some new immersive experiences that are going to be very deep. You're going to be able to go and hopefully travel different places, experience different things, shop online virtually, hopefully be able to see sizing and stuff like that because your avatar will be the right size, blah, 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 blah. Tons of new experiences that you weren't expecting before. Whether or not you think that's a good thing, this is a positive angle. The increased funding is allowing them to hire more talent, like Michael Abrash, which we'll talk about later. That's amazing, actually. That's incredibly awesome. They were already being controlled by investors, is another big one. Actually pretty deeply rooted one that we're going to get into later that I have a ton of theories about and some really interesting quotes that we've seen over the past month or two which really hint to this, but we'll talk about that later again. They didn't get purchased by another gaming hardware company.
That would have been a disaster in my mind. I mean, if they'd been bought by... I've actually seen people suggest that Sony or Microsoft would have been a better option. That would have been
terrible.
That would have been disastrous.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at how closed Xbox and PlayStation are as ecosystems.
And even like the Oculus community, which is generally right now makers, hackers, hardcores, all that kind of stuff, have been talking about, like, there's the Tuscany demo. You can go to a small version of Tuscany and enjoy that environment. Something that I've talked about on the stream before was how I hoped that someone would go and recreate something like Rome and make it so that someone, even if they're in an old folks home, could travel the world and experience these things. This is very cool. And you don't want to get locked into a gaming hardware niche and have none of that ever be possible. Right now, Oculus is open. Of course, gaming is going to drive it, but hopefully it opens up. So again, these are all positive angles. They can now afford custom hardware. They've been scraping off what they can kind of manage to get from the mobile market, like mobile phones, and now they'll actually be able to make hardware that is designed and built and manufactured for the Rift instead of like something that was made for something else, and they're just kind of hacking it and forcing it in there and making it work.
Because, I mean, and this is something that was sort of the whole negative thing, where the makers and hackers don't really feel that great about Oculus not staying true to the homebrew roots, but those guys also want a fantastic VR experience.
4K, whatever.
And purpose-made hardware is going to be a big way to get there.
Yeah.
All right, so are we going through the history now, or
one
more
more
thing?
thing? Oh crap, where did it go? I can't remember where it is. Doesn't matter. I'll get into it later. So how I designed this document and how I think we're going to go through this is actually like kind of the progression of thought of kind of a lot of people and how people found out different news, and part of maybe the reason why it started off as a massive explosion, not that it isn't still a massive explosion. You can make your own decision on whether or not it's positive or negative, and we'll get into that kind of stuff later, but we're just going to go through how things happen and why things happen.
And the reason we're going to do that, I mean, I've seen a few comments in Twitch chat from people saying, oh, I'm not that interested in Oculus. Okay, two things. Number one, yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. And number two, Oculus is, well, basically the same as number one. Oculus and VR in general is extremely important, and this is a turning point in not just gaming and not just Oculus, but in VR. And in what that's going to mean for the future. So that's why we are dedicating almost an entire show to it. You guys can stay tuned in, and this is going to be a really great show. Luke in particular has worked extremely hard on making sure that we're bringing you guys some really good coverage of what happened this week. So you can stay tuned in and you can enjoy that. Or if you don't think this is important, legitimately don't think this is important, then I mean, you can probably tune back in about 45 minutes or an hour, and we'll get into some of the NVIDIA stuff and some of the other stuff this week. But this is such a big deal right now and in the future.
Another thing that I wanted to bring up, the thing I forgot to bring up on the positive angles thing, which is actually not on the doc, which is probably why you started talking, is even if you are done with Oculus, it doesn't matter. VR is now going to happen. Because there's been this big of an investment, other investment firms are going to look into other companies and start pouring a lot more money into VR because Facebook is huge and they are a competitor, a natural competitor of many things. So VR is now going to happen. There's a lot of people have been going like, oh, Oculus is dead now. Whether or not they're dead doesn't matter. Even if they're the sacrificial lamb, it's going to happen now. VR is... we made it.
Yeah, when one company dives in and invests a couple billion, then everyone else kind of goes, ooh.
Oh, this matters.
Ooh,
so whether or
Facebook
not...
thinks it's important, so all of a sudden VR companies are going to be acquired by big guys, and they're going to get investment funding.
Tons of funding, yeah.
And all the funding, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be really great, whether it's the kind of great we envisioned or not.
Yeah, whether or not you think Oculus is now the sacrificial lamb that's going to die, or if you think they're just going to be the biggest thing on the planet, doesn't matter. It's happening, which is a good thing. So it started off with the posts by Mark Zuckerberg and Palmer Luckey on Palmer posting on Reddit and on the blog for Oculus, and Mark posting on Facebook.
Can you make sure that, okay, I'm going to try and keep up with you and post links and stuff since I won't have a whole ton to say.
At the start, it should be fairly easy. It's starting off fairly slow, especially because I'm mainly going over the future of VR Reddit post.
Okay,
so I'm going to stay there for a while, and then it might get a little bit.
So I'm going to go ahead and drop this in there.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off with some very notable things that were said in Palmer's post on Reddit. He said, we've received orders of over 75,000 development kits from game developers, content creators, and artists around the world. And I'm going to comment on each thing that I've read in here and then go into other comments later on. One big thing that people were attacking him over on this was a lot of people that went into this aren't game developers, content creators, and artists. I'm not a game developer, content creator, or an artist. Of course,
yeah, you're not particularly talented at all, are you?
No.
I think you're great.
That was so mean. Anyways, I dabbled in making some stuff in Unity, and it was fun, to be completely honest. But I didn't make anything that was worth releasing. I'm not a game designer. I've dabbled in programming, but I'm not that amazing. And I know everyone I know that's bought one isn't any of these things. They're interested in the company, so people were worried that he was abusing that number to try and get investment feeds, and people were canceling because they're trying to vote with their wallet. Whatever. We'll get more into that later. Another quote from there was, when Facebook first approached us about partnering, I was skeptical. A lot of people were like, you probably should have kept that angle. We'll get more into that later and why he ended up doing it, all that kind of stuff. Facebook is run in an open way that is aligned with Oculus's culture. A lot of people responded saying, how is Facebook aligned in an with Oculus at all in an open way, blah, 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 blah. But there is reasons for and against that. They have pushed for a lot of open development. People are saying, oh, no, they haven't. They actually have. They've invested quite a bit of money in open development. Some of their stuff is proprietary and closed, but not everything. They do push for some open stuff.
Yeah, they've talked a lot about even things like the architecture that they use to make Facebook so responsive with the heavy load that it has.
They're pretty open about a lot of that kind of stuff.
They are pushing connectivity forward in some ways, and I don't want this to feel like I'm some kind of a Facebook fanboy. I'm not, but
I didn't even have it until I needed to be able to admin the Linus Tech Tips Facebook page.
yeah, I know, right?
So like, yeah, I don't know. It's just that's just a fact. They haven't been completely against openness, no matter how you want to see it. It means Oculus Rift will be able to come out with fewer compromises and faster, that's just probably true. There's tons more money. Yeah, they can pay more for manufacturing, they can push things through faster.
Yep.
Oculus' somewhat unpredictable future just became crystal clear. Virtual reality is coming, and it's going to change the way we view and play games forever. That was slightly edited, but it's essentially what we were talking about earlier. VR is happening now.
Yeah.
No matter what. Another quote from him, I'm obsessed with VR. I spend every day pushing further and every night dreaming of where we're going. Even in my wildest dreams, I never imagined we'd come so far so fast. I'm a proud member of this community. Thank you all for carrying virtual reality and gaming forward and trusting us to deliver. We won't let you down.
So he said all that, but the reality of it is he can't say anything else. Yeah. So we're not sure what to read into this. I think at the end of the day, if you trust Palmer and you trust the Oculus team, it's not like they can just bail and start again, because Oculus, the company, owns so many patents now that they, in all likelihood, wouldn't even be able to start up again and go back up against their old company.
And I'm sure there's some type of non-compete agreements and stuff too. But there is things in here. People were wondering, like, oh, are those Notch? Actually, specifically, I'm going to jump down right here.
So let's clarify who Notch is. Minecraft dev.
Minecraft creator Notch actually replied on this exact Reddit thread saying, "You got my respect before I met you. You kept it when I met you. Blah 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 blah." I'm going to jump forward a little bit. Where is it?
I just hope you got your fair share. VR will live on. Thank you for being part of making it finally happen, but I really wish this hadn't happened.
Which the main part I was trying to say is, I understand you're probably under a big NDA and stuck in golden handcuffs. Which is interesting, but you also have to realize that you've got Palmer, and which is interesting. A lot of people are starting to trust Palmer, but you have John Carmack. Mm-hmm. John Carmack isn't just going to shut up and code because someone's slapping dollar bills at him.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So if this does start getting forced in a bad direction, if I were you guys paying attention, I would listen to John Carmack. Honestly, personally, I'm going to listen to Palmer too, but he is a lot newer to the scene than John freaking Carmack is.
Carmack says whatever he wants, as far as I can tell, and as far as anyone can probably tell. I'm going to go ahead and... So if you really want to get some feedback, Carmack actually posted on Twitter about 3 days ago. He basically said, look, the volume of tweets right now is way too high. I can't even begin to look at it all. But if you hit me in a few days, or like once the poop storm starts to die down a little bit, then he does want to engage. He does want to talk about it. When I initially saw that it was radio silence from Carmack for the first couple of days after the acquisition, that set off some warning bells. Maybe he's unhappy, but it looks now as if he was just weathering the storm.
He said, "I'm currently coding." He was essentially being like, "Guys, I'm working."
Well, that's a blog post from when? That was from yesterday or the day before, right?
Yeah, I'm currently coding.
Yeah.
That was pretty early on, actually.
So he's like, "Yeah, I'm still coding, just the same as I was this time last week." So, for all intents and purposes, nothing has changed.
And that was echoing the idea that the Facebook acquisition hadn't changed anything. Anyways, moving on. People were asking, when they saw Notch in the comments, they were asking him a whole bunch of questions, and they were basically saying, please tell me it's going to be all right. Notch replied with, a lot of companies are working on VR now. This means competition. This means better VR and higher chances of a mass market acceptance. This means even better VR. It's going to be all right. Very small italicized print. Maybe. So that echoes again the thing that we said earlier, where no matter what you think about this, it's pushing VR forward. Whether or not Oculus is what carries the torch in the end, they're carrying it right now. People are saying to Palmer, "You were the chosen one. You were supposed to just destroy the Sith, not join them. Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness." I just had to keep that in there because it was kind of funny. Now, echoing one of the most highly upvoted posts on the thread, these were a bunch of the concerns. Facebook is known for its intrusive tracking of users. Facebook is undoubtedly a massive company. It is beginning to lose a lot of its teenage population due to more widespread use of the older population, and the fact that Oculus has been acquired by Facebook. Palmer has repeatedly said partnership or partnering, but they were acquired. So he was worried about that terminology where it might just be kind of a haze, and Palmer thinks they're partnering up, but really Facebook is the one on top. So those were the main things spoken there. About the Facebook is known for intrusive tracking of users. As far as I can tell, if the lead people of Oculus still have anything to say about it, that platform is going to be really open, and you'll probably know about it. So that might be a bad thing, but again, Oculus is carrying the torch now. So if later on down the line you see an update, like the update we saw on mobile that says like Facebook is now reading all of your text messages despite having nothing to do with those, you should know about it. So just pay a lot of attention and then...
I mean, Facebook's whole thing, I don't see anything in your notes here, but Facebook's whole thing has been we want Oculus to operate basically independently, just like what we did with Instagram and WhatsApp. But my counter to that is, I mean, you look at Mark Zuckerberg's blog post where he talks about the future of connectivity and how exciting these experiences we can deliver, you know, whether it's travel or whether it's having a face-to-face meeting with someone or whatever it happens to be. When he talks about that, we're talking like a 10-year, 20-year outlook. And they acquired Instagram like 2 years ago. And they acquired WhatsApp like... So this is not a track record of acquiring companies and letting them operate independently. This is in the last like
little tiny amount of time.
Like since Linus Media Group was formed, they haven't really disrupted things with their two big acquisitions.
Yeah.
So the fact that all this is being said now, I mean, you look at how quickly politicians can turn around and have a campaign and then go back on that and still get elected 4 years later. The collective memory of people is so short that even if Facebook does exert complete control over Oculus let's use 4 years as an example because that's the elected term in the US and Canada for politicians. So even if Facebook does in 4 years exert complete control and 4 years after that plaster the whole platform with ads and use it as a way to collect data on where you go, what you look at, and all of this great stuff, probably no one will ever even remember this happened.
And
except you.
Except for me. Now we get into the poop storm.
Okay.
That was the start of it, and that was people... Honestly, in that Reddit thread, I found it to be more calm than elsewhere, which was kind of confusing. Things started popping up. People started digging up things on both Facebook and Oculus.
So you want that one first?
First thing, yeah, there's a really bad word in it. First thing that comes to mind is a very old screenshot from a conversation that Mark Zuckerberg had when he said, yeah, so if you ever need any info about anyone at Harvard, just ask. I have over 4,000 emails, pictures, addresses, SNS, etc. And then the guy said, how do you manage that? He said, people just submitted it. I don't know why. They trust me. Dumb.
Well, yeah, we don't say that word on this show, but you guys can read. It's right there.
Yeah. So, like, that's not cool, especially because of speculation that VR devices are going to get things like eye tracking, the fact that this thing is strapped to your freaking face, so if you're looking at a certain product or something like that, they know it's not just like in another tab, you are looking at it with your face.
And I'm not blaming AMD for this, but their true audio technology, so the programmable DSP, that like it's like a really powerful sound processor. They showed off some really cool demos with respect to voice recognition. So all of a sudden, now hold on a second, because we went from, you know, not being too worried about people really tapping into anything that we're doing to all of a sudden is face-to-face conversation going to be the only way to actually not have anyone listening? And are we going to allow ourselves to be convinced that aside from phone taps and messaging taps, when you have a VR conversation with someone, like, I mean, you look at the kinds of things, the kinds of experiences that VR could bring us. Do you want Facebook listening to everything you say when you have a family reunion and everyone's VRing in? Because what a cool experience. But they'll be able to recognize everything you say and use that information. Facebook wants to own your information, and that is what this is all about, fundamentally. And, okay, Zuckerberg said a really stupid thing in a text message.
And it's old.
And he was stupid and he was young. And I'm sure he would be the first to admit that that was a super stupid thing to say, and he would take it back 100% today if he could.
But it still happened.
But it did happen. So you guys can read into that whatever you want. But I do believe that while people don't change much, I think they can grow up. And I hope that that was just a young college guy having a
And I think that's when it was only tied
something.
into Harvard, and like a lot of things have changed since then.
Yeah.
Another thing that people are worried about with the Facebook thing is, again, all of your data, blah, 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 blah. And I know in one of Carmack's tweets, he said, like, if you guys blog or whatever about this, I'm going to pay attention. So, and he said, like, things that you're worried about and ways that it can be fixed and stuff like that. So if you do happen to be listening, that's really cool. Hi. Also, like, creepiness factor. Try to control the creepiness factor. Make sure it's open. Make sure people know what's going on. Because I think that's honestly the biggest reason why people are scared of Facebook is just the fact that Facebook can be really creepy. So that's probably the biggest thing, I'd say. The camera that is now on Oculus. People, we don't really have it yet, so we don't know if it's actually taking images or if it's only scanning for IR LEDs. But who knows what will happen in the future. Maybe there's an actual camera fixed on that thing.
And you know what's scary is I would opt in for the camera model for sure.
I already, yeah.
Yeah, like okay,
You
even
have
if
to.
they
That's
told
currently
me,
DK2.
even if it was an option, if someone was like, look, we can put an IR tracker one only, and you can put IR kits around in your room or whatever else, or we can give you one with a camera.
You could get like a skeleton frame. Yeah, no, I know, and like that's.
I would take the camera one, even if I knew that they were looking at what I was looking at, because of it's going to be such a great experience.
Exactly.
I just wish it
so a lot of people are going to do that. So, like I said, what we're worried about is the creepiness factor. So just try and keep that under control. And
all right, what's our next one?
Our next one is Oculus is not connected with Facebook.
This is just kind of funny.
It's just kind of funny.
Won't spend much time on this one.
Taking a break from the hate. So during the and now, actually, which is kind of hilarious, this was taken earlier today. It's not like a... Yeah, I did. Yeah, I've seen people screenshot that. That's my screenshot though, because I couldn't find it at the time. But Oculus had not connected with Facebook during the campaign, and they still haven't on Kickstarter at least, which is just kind of hilarious. John Carmack may or may not even have a Facebook account. There's a Facebook account for John Carmack up right now, but it looks like super
public figure Facebook account, and like the title is Godfather of Moving 3D Images or something like that. I doubt that he put that in there. That doesn't seem like his style.
No, and it's not like verified or
He
anything.
did tweet that he'll probably have to get a Facebook account now.
But I don't think he's rushing to do it. He's probably busy coding because he's kind of awesome at that. Anyways, moving on to the thing that had me super pissed off at the beginning. The reason why I thought the entire thing was just ruined and why I basically cried over Twitter for a little while.
And the reason that a lot of people felt this way, this New York Times post
was brutal, and honestly where I think most of the hate came from. Just jumping into saying what's exactly in the article. According to a person involved with the deal, who was not allowed to speak publicly because he was not authorized by either company, Facebook eventually plans to redesign the Oculus hardware and rebrand it with a Facebook interface and logo.
Which didn't even make any sense, really. Like, what does that even mean?
But that's one of the reasons why I was so mad.
Right, because the whole deal didn't make sense on the surface. Social network acquiring VR gaming company.
And then it's like rebranding and then calling it, what the heck?
Yeah, like what is this exactly? Since then, Facebook has made their intentions much more clear, and this was wholeheartedly denied. Like,
it was hammered down, but it sat there for a while and let a lot of people stew, and it was scary. And I love how it's like a small part of that article too, and
Yeah.
it's not like a you know how they pop it out and make it big and make it a different color and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
like The Verge does. They didn't do that with it or anything. Like it's kind of at the bottom, but it's like the most important thing in the entire article. But yeah, that's been shut down pretty quick, so no longer worried about that. And then other things start coming out, like the people are saying it's an internal call. I've heard a lot of news that it actually wasn't an internal call. It was quite public, but I have no idea which is true. Either way, I don't care. It was, as far as I know, an investor call for Oculus and Facebook, and there's some QA and Mark Zuckerberg's on the call, and it's fairly interesting. But almost all the way through the call, there's the part that most people actually listen to. I ended up listening to the whole thing, but this is the part that people really cared about. It's really long. I don't know if I'll actually read through the whole thing.
How about I read it? I'm
really
fast.
long. Sure, go.
All right. So he says, so this is from Zuckerberg. He says, in terms of our business model, we're clearly not a hardware company. We're not going to try and make a profit off the device itself in the long term. And we see this as a software and services thing, where if we can make it so that this becomes a network, so that people can be communicating and buying things like virtual goods, there might be adverts in the world, but we need to figure that out down the line. So that's probably where the business will come from. But for the foreseeable future, the main goal that we have is building out the product, using the different levers that Facebook has to make the technology affordable and to make it ubiquitous, and to use the different technologies that Facebook has developed to bring it to market as soon as possible. So there you go. That's the plan. Whether that makes it any less scary to you or not, for me it doesn't at all. Clearly, the plan is investing in the platform and making it successful. So that's the priority, and they will figure out the monetization later. So it's the whole internet company startup model, except this time being applied to an actual piece of hardware, because that piece of hardware is so directly tied into the software experience, they can't exist without each other.
Now this...
I covered that okay?
Yeah, this scared and didn't scare a lot of people for multiple reasons. It scared people because it was an internal call. The second that came out, everyone freaked out. Yet, whether or not that's even true, I don't know. People only heard the advertisement part and freaked out. One thing you have to remember:
he has to say that
this is an investment call. This
Yeah.
isn't. This wasn't the public post on Facebook. This was an investment call.
Mark Zuckerberg can't just be like, well, yeah, I want to play VR games, so I bought this company so that I can like make this thing even better. I mean, I don't think that's it. Although it'd be super cool if he was like a closet
If you read
VR
his
nerd.
Facebook posts, it's the most like, oh my god, I love this thing post that I've seen of anyone ever.
So,
That's
who
a
knows?
CEO.
There may even be a little bit of that, and we can hope for that, because if he's truly passionate about the technology, then I kind of go, okay, maybe it'll be okay. But then probably not, because in the future he'll still have to bend to the needs of his investors and monetize the heck out of the platform.
But then by the time that happens, you're talking years in the future.
Yeah, potentially.
Something else will be there as well.
Yep.
It like doesn't matter. There will be a competitor for Rift. So we have to hope that they build up the technology, drive everything further, make this stuff because
Make it profitable for developers to
Yeah.
develop for VR.
definitely, and
Yep.
then hopefully competitors will jump in the fray, because even if you're still a huge fan of Oculus, it doesn't matter. Competitors are good. Competition is always good. It drives innovation. Competition is good. So anyways, okay, moving
So
on.
there's some other weird stuff.
So this is actually largely stuff that I haven't seen around a ton, but things that I've noticed over the last little while. So starting off with Oculus dropping out of the Immersive Technology Alliance, kind of awkwardly dropping out of the Immersive Technology Alliance. So
super awkward.
yeah, the Immersive Technology Alliance is a non-profit games collective that is focused on bringing stuff like augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D, and gesture control technology to the masses. It's an alliance. There's tons of these things. There's the DVD Alliance. There's tons of them.
Basically any standard, whether it's like
Yeah.
USB or DisplayPort, is going to have some kind of group of individuals or companies or investors or entities that manage the standard and drive it forward.
Because if they don't, things get kind of insane usually. So it's like the high-profile virtual reality company Oculus Rift recently dropped out of this alliance, but Oculus claims they were never a part of it, yet the ITA guys are saying they were a big part of it and actually helped them move from what they were previously known as, which was S3DGA, to the newly named ITA, and Oculus actually had them like remove their branding from their website and everything, and basically just dropped the ball, moved back as far as they possibly could, and say I was never playing, which is interesting. And this is not the newest news, this was from a little while ago. I think I actually shortly mentioned it on the show, but because I didn't really know what it meant at the time,
Yeah.
I didn't make it a huge topic. It's just weird, and the timing's a little bit off.
So they basically, the ITA is saying that they got their first official notification that Oculus was leaving the alliance late in the evening on March 15th.
Yeah,
So this
it's
was
like pretty recent.
close to when the deal happened, and it's just, this article is super, super weird. It's on polygon.com. I don't think I ever
There's
said
not
that
a lot
before.
of comments on it, and no one's commented on it since like the 18th.
Right.
So it's I don't know. I just find that's interesting because they got acquired by Facebook and then they locked off from the alliance that's trying to make some sort of standard. So that's interesting. Then if you click on the thread, so this is where everything kind of started. This is mtbs3d.com. I always screw that up. Which is where Palmer was a huge member of this forum, and this is where the epic, like, massive 4,235 post thread started, and this is just a big deal. And if you control F for where is it? Sell out to a large company, you can see a big thread where he answers a whole bunch of questions, and right in the middle of it he says, Oculus is going forward in a big way, but in a way that still lets me focus on the community first and not sell out to a large company. A lot of people were very upset about this comment because community first, not sell out to a large company. So now people are saying, are you no longer community first because you sold out to a large company? The problems with this are, if you jump into the next one, the big $75 million investment that happened not way too long ago. The guy that did that works for Facebook. Actually, if you check out the board of directors, which I also have linked here, this is where I was telling you you're going to get into rapid fire.
Don't worry, I got this.
If you check out the board of directors, you can see him there. Mark Andreessen, I believe. You can see him on the board of directors for Facebook, and he was a huge investment pool right there. And then quotes that have been fairly recently coming out of Palmer saying Oculus has already sold out by raising venture capital money because they had these investors that were able to control them a little bit. And Palmer said that a lot. They already sold out, and then they were acquired by Facebook, the same company that their big $75 million investor is on the board of directors for, which is really interesting. And it also even seems like he was trying to tell us. Valve knew something on February the 28th. This is a quote from an article where a guy from Valve went to visit Oculus. He said, the demo stuck me in a simple room whose walls were textured with financial data for Facebook from some website. An odd choice. Yeah. There's a little red cube bouncing around the room, and the desire to avoid it was extremely strong. A dodgeball/laser field game immediately popped into my mind, but as I mentioned before, a tether really hurts this type of idea. The part that I really paid attention to when reading this, and this was actually brought to my attention, I didn't notice this, was the financial data for Facebook from some website just being plastered all over the walls on February 28th. It's interesting in combination with him saying that they were already sold out by raising venture capital and then having that just kind of randomly leaked out there. It's really weird to just do that. Anyways, these are all the like random crap that I've found over the last little while. Another
You can tell
thing,
he's a little into this, hey?
I didn't really sleep much this week. Another thing that happened was, if you go to the corporate Reddit attack or framing link that I have there,
Don't worry, man.
was weird ditto posts all over technology and gaming. This was, again, this is not a screenshot by me. This is just something I found that someone else brought up. But you don't really know what angle to go with this because
Okay, we should explain what this is. Okay,
sure.
okay, just so you, in case you guys. So basically, defending the deal, like right after it happened, there were these what appear to be shill accounts popping up on Reddit, posting like copy-paste responses or very similar responses to people hating on it. Okay,
kind
go
of
ahead.
all over the place, and a lot of times they're very new accounts and stuff like that.
Yep.
But that doesn't really make a lot of sense for the direction and angle that anyone at Oculus was taking or anyone at Facebook was taking, to be completely honest. So
Yeah.
we don't know whether or not this was
It could have just as easily been someone trying to
frame them.
destroy
Yeah.
any sort of positive sentiment that might have existed by pretending to be someone trying to defend what was going on
Yeah.
in the most obvious, horrible guerrilla marketing way.
So this is interesting, but we don't know what side of the field it even plays on, or did a whole bunch of people just happen to decide to copy and paste each other for karma? That might have been it. So who knows? Not sure. Looks fishy. don't know which side of it it's on. It's just something interesting that we noticed. Then things started popping up. This is again going through somewhat of a timeline. Then things started popping up of basically every Kickstarter I've ever heard of, especially the ones that I've been a part of, because I've now seen updates by a few of them being like, whoa, 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 we're not selling to Facebook. Even like some super random stuff that has nothing to do with anything, being like, whoa, guys, it's cool. So people were begging Chris Roberts not to sell to Facebook, which I found hilarious. That was the main one I wanted to show because we're fairly into Star Citizen, so I wanted to bring that one up. But there's been stuff for tons of different Kickstarters, not just Star Citizen. There's even, I forgot to put it in here, there's even a Kickstarter running right now that has a stretch goal of $2 billion. That's like, we'll try to buy Oculus from Facebook, which is hilarious. Someone was joking, saying that there should be a $2 billion stretch goal for CIG, saying that it's preventing Facebook from buying CIG. A lot of people were joking, but there was actually some legitimate fear in there. And it has started an interesting question on Kickstarters for technology. So a lot of people feel like they're heavily invested in something when they kickstart it, and feel like they're kind of a part of the company, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're donating, and then you're getting something back for donating, but you're not getting a part of the company back for donating. And while it feels like that, and the culture around Kickstarter is really heavily around like
Community,
and you're a part of this, and this is you made this happen, blah 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 blah. Really, you might have made it happen, but it doesn't matter. You're not actually a part of that company. You're not an investor.
And if you look at the Kickstarter, they promised you a dev kit 1. They shipped you a dev kit 1.
Or whatever other tier you were on.
Or whatever tier you were on. So any obligation that Oculus had to you is over.
And no matter how depressing that seems, because honestly, when I kickstart a lot of things, I'm kickstarting it not necessarily just because of what I get back from what I'm donating at. A lot of games, especially a month or two after the release for a lot of these indie games, are way cheaper than my Kickstarter price. I'm kickstarting them because I want it to happen.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I have an investment in the company.
So then, I mean, maybe you're happy about the Facebook thing because now it's going to happen even more and better, supposedly.
I don't think there's too many of those.
I don't think.
But that's possible. Another fairly noteworthy rant to bring up. This was one that was fairly early on. This was on Reddit again. A lot of this happened on Reddit. People just pointing out that holy crap, John Carmack is a Facebook employee now.
Go figure, eh?
It's just weird to think about. Like, I don't even know what to say. It
hurts my brain.
It's just like, wait, what? Anyways, but he's not. He is, but he's not. Like, he's working for Oculus. I don't know, whatever. People posting Facebook is an advertising company. They sell data so that their paying customers, the advertisers, can target their marketing. And it wouldn't surprise anyone if in a couple of years you won't be able to use it without supplying data to Facebook, wittingly or not. Eye tracking interests. This part is me. Eye tracking what you're interested in, and it's really easy to know if you're paying attention or looking at something when it's strapped to your face.
Can you imagine how effectively you can sell ad impressions, or like how much more effectively graphic designers could design their ads to make it so that you look at them, and all the kind of subconscious crap that goes on that people don't even think about. I mean, when you go shopping at a store, you ever notice there's like a double door in like every store? Zone. That is a psychological thing. There's this buffer zone between
it's called the decompression zone.
Not shopping and shopping that they have created very intentionally. You know what's funny is when I was a kid, I always thought that it was like to keep the heat in or out.
I think that's what they say.
Yeah.
But it's known to be a decompression zone thing. There's other things too. A lot of the tile in the middle of malls is shiny. And then the tile in the stores is not shiny, or it's carpet or something like that. It's
so
really
that you
shiny.
Move faster and settle somewhere?
Yeah, it's usually shiny in the middle of the mall and not super shiny in a store, blah, 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 blah. It's very bland.
The smells that they'll run through stores.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things are designed to make you buy without even knowing why you're doing it. And eye tracking is going to be a real good way to make that even more effective.
That being said, there's a bunch of posts in Palmer's personal Reddit account that talks about this type of stuff, and we'll be getting into that later. Again, we're going through in fairly linear lines.
Just keep going, keep going. They know we're getting into that later. It's okay.
So the community is mad about the change of pace. This was a fairly interesting one because messages that came from Carmack, the CTO of Oculus VR, and a very important dude, saying stuff like, for a certain segment of the population, the hacker/maker crowd, this is going to be awesomely cool to work with. That was the message before. The message now is this being from Brendan Irb. I don't actually know how to pronounce his last name. That's really embarrassing. The CEO of Oculus VR, saying, "We believe virtual reality will be heavily defined by social experiences that connect people in magical new ways." That's very different than the heartbeat kind of idea that was Oculus before, which is like, yeah, hackers and makers. It's more social experience now, which is interesting. But then at the same time...
And he used the word magical. Thank you, Mr. Jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a magical device.
At the same time, though, this is two different people, and if you talk to Carmack, he's still very gaming focused, and if you talk to Palmer, he's still very gaming focused. This is just quotes that I got from a picture that someone posted on Reddit. Brendan, while this is a specific quote, again, this is grabbing snippet quotes. Grabbing snippet quotes isn't always applicable. If you go talk to Brendan if you go watch some of his videos that he's been in at conventions, a lot of time he talks about gaming, and some of them have been very recent. They're still talking about gaming. He's just talking about an idea that they haven't really expressed as much necessarily in the past. So I'm not sure how much that matters, but a lot of people were up in arms about that. Something that was also really interesting was the "Are you done with VR" straw poll that came up, which ended up being huge. "I'm done with Oculus VR, dead to me" was one of the options. That had 11,032 votes when I last looked at it and was accounting for 50% of the votes. I will withhold judgment for now and see how this plays out. Only had 9,947 votes compared to the previous 11,000 and something, ringing in at 45% of the vote. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah. And then the people saying they're okay with Facebook was only 4%, which is like nothing.
But then a lot of this was knee-jerk reaction.
This straw poll was created extremely early, and I wish we could get every single person that responded on that to respond again and see how it would change. I don't necessarily think the number of people saying that Facebook is okay would necessarily increase, because no matter how you look at this, I don't think a ton of people are super stoked about the idea of Facebook. But I think more people would probably side with the "I will withhold judgment for now and see how this plays out." Because if you have to put your trust in anyone, Palmer, Carmack, and all those guys, those are some people to put your trust in. People have been describing Carmack as the canary in the coal mine, and I don't really know any better way of actually saying that, because that's a really good way of putting it.
If he had a problem with it, then we'd know about it, and I guess at least we'll have a heads up when stuff's about to hit the fan, because when Carmack leaves Oculus, then we'll know.
There's your heads up.
There's your heads up.
And Abrash joining, like, that's another person to pay attention to and follow, and honestly, if anyone can do it, it's these guys. So I hope they make it, because I don't know, it's scary. Then things start happening.
Hold on a second. I actually created a new straw poll. So we'd love for you guys to vote on this one. I'm just going to post it in the chat a few times here so that you guys can see it. Only click the ones that are posted by me, because it's sort of a thing for people to just make their own straw polls. Anyway, so go ahead, check that out. We'd love to hear what you guys think, and see how it compares to the original results. Okay, go ahead, Luke.
All right, so next we're still in kind of negative stuff. So Oculus CTO bails on GTC due to illness. Now, if you try to go to this thread, it's not going to work.
Oh, okay.
It was pulled down by NVIDIA's blog.
NVIDIA's blog was amazing. It's too bad we didn't. Did you copy it?
I don't have a screenshot or anything. I should have. I should have thought about that. But there's a new post on NVIDIA's blog now, actually, where if you can find that, I should have put that in here.
I'll look for it.
Rushing near the end. There's a new post saying, like, holy crap, he's awesome, because he ended up showing up. Ended up being a very last minute kind of ditch effort kind of thing. They got about 100 people there just like at the very last possible second, and he ended up talking to them, and apparently it was great. Yeah, here we go. Speaks at GTC. Yeah. Very, very different than their previous article, which was like begs off attendance, blah 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 blah, like super not stoked. They're happy with him now. But again, this was playing into the negative feeling of the whole internet, where everyone's like, "Oh, he's not ill. He's just trying to dodge our questions." Honestly, I don't even necessarily think that was a thing. He was very possibly ill because of how much crap has been being thrown at them. Because like
They've been busy.
Yeah, I don't know. I doubt any of that team has really slept much over the
Not that
last
you'd
while.
be able to relate to becoming ill because no sleep and lots of work.
Yeah, I think people can probably remember that. Although I bet you Carmack's fine, because as far as I can tell, he just like doesn't care and is still programming, which is kind of awesome. But the rest of the team, especially Palmer, once we get to his Reddit posts, you can. Oh man, I feel bad for Palmer. Anyways, moving on to Notch's post. So Notch posted on Twitter. Some people saw the retweet from me, essentially saying that he has no intention of now creating a Minecraft mod, which he's planning on making, an official one, because he finds Facebook to be creepy. You heard our quotes earlier from when he was on the Reddit thread. He's been very vocal in this. So a direct quote is, "I did not chip in 10 grand to seed a first investment round to build value for a Facebook acquisition." Another quote is, "I definitely want to be a part of VR, but I will not work with Facebook. Their motives are too unclear and shifting, and they haven't historically been a stable platform. There's nothing about their history that makes me trust them, and that makes them seem very creepy to me." Now, before we get into those comments, I want to jump forward and to the Scumbag Oculus Meme Kickstarters edition, which is just kind of interesting and plays into what Notch was talking about, and we'll talk about that in a second. And Palmer's post, when Palmer bounces back at Notch for posting that by saying things like he had the Rift for over a year and hasn't even tried the unofficial Minecraft mod, at least at the point of Palmer posting that, which is, I'm assuming, based on information from when Notch visited that office before the Facebook acquisition. And he said it's easy to cancel a project that was never even really started anyways. He has merit in both of those points, but
Dun dun dun. Okay.
I don't think a lot of comments that people have been pointing at him, coming from people like Cliff Belinsky and coming from even Palmer himself and a whole bunch of people on the internet and the guy that posted this Facebook post originally, are necessarily that accurate. They're calling him childish and feeble and all this other kind of stuff. Whether or not it's because he just doesn't feel like doing the project and he wants to cancel it, that doesn't seem very true necessarily, especially when he's saying, "I definitely want to be a part of VR. But I will not work with Facebook." He does kind of seem like he wants to be a part of VR. I'm gonna have to take what he's saying on face value. He seems pretty legit in the past. It does seem like he's doing it on moral reasons. He doesn't like Facebook, so he's canceling the project. That doesn't make him childish just because he doesn't like something. He doesn't want to work with someone. I don't necessarily agree with that, but then again, that's up to you to make that decision.
Being childish might be taking it public. You could always just cancel the project and not say
that's very true.
That and because of something.
Jumping on the Reddit post and jumping on Twitter and making it a huge deal, that could have been a childish action. But I don't think necessarily like that.
Like the whole Fez 2 cancellation thing.
Oh yeah.
Would that have been less drama if he'd just canceled it instead of saying, "I'm canceling it because you guys are so mean to me"?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And that's a very good point. I don't think the fact that he canceled it is childish. Maybe the way he went about it, you can decide whatever the heck you want about that. That's just something to throw out there.
So here's our new straw poll. So there's been a major shift. The major shift in the perception here. So we had 300 votes for Oculus is dead to me, and a full 65%. Actually, okay, so 76% of you are either okay or withholding judgment. Okay,
which is interesting, a massive shift and good timing, because now we get into the shift where Reddit, our own community, Twitter, a lot of these different communities, the voice that was most heard is now changing to stop attacking them. Let's wait and see, all that kind of stuff, instead of like direct and sometimes personal attacks and threats to people like
Which
Palmer.
Which is ridiculous.
Which is not okay. Okay, moving on. So, blah, 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 blah. The hate now directed at those attacking Oculus.
Yeah, I got
Quotes
that.
from this are, to jump to personal attacks in an emotional tantrum-esque way and abandon ship without actually realizing where this deal will go. That's a pretty good quote and true to what a lot of people did. I got extremely sad. I'm sure people saw my Twitter account. But that was mainly when I was getting stuff from the New York Times saying that they're going to rebrand everything, and a lot of the other information basically saying Oculus is dead. That was depressing. But once I found other things, not nearly as sad. And another quote there saying, "Chill and let's wait and see. Let's all wait and see," which I think is yeah, that's what I'm doing. At least I'm gonna wait and see. I'm still very interested. No matter what, I'm not done with VR. From this, and a lot of my friends back in high school that I forced to try it, including my girlfriend who didn't care at all, but was a good sport about it. Back when I bought Nia, my neural impulse actuator
That thing was
from
such a
OCZ,
piece of poo.
but I don't care.
I know.
It's
I
new
know.
ways of interacting with computers. This has always been what I've cared about most, and I find this incredibly interesting. So whether or not it ends up being Oculus, I'm still totally in for VR. Cliff Belinsky weighs in. This was interesting. I wasn't as interested in this as many other things, but it is still fairly interesting because he gained a lot from this whole situation. He was a really big early on investor, and something that people have been attacking Oculus over is why the Kickstarter people weren't allowed to be investors. That's like US law. That's not... Oculus wasn't like, yeah, no, let's just give them DK1s instead of shares in the company. That's just how things work. They can't change how the United States works. So you can attack them over different things, but that's not really gonna... It doesn't matter. No. But he's an accredited investor, whatever the heck, so he's able to do this kind of stuff. And he brings up some interesting points and some stuff that's scary and I hope never happens. So he brings up the fact that Facebook has a multi-million user reach, and as people notice with Mark's promoted post, he probably didn't pay for that. He can probably push advertisements in a lot of different places, getting a lot of different eyes on board without paying for it. And quotes coming in earlier on where we were talking about how Facebook is losing a certain audience and saying like, oh, but that's the audience that's going for Oculus Rift right now. Yeah. Okay, so they already have those people. They don't necessarily need those people from Facebook. Yeah. What they can gain from Facebook is the multi-billion user reach of people that don't know what the heck Oculus is.
Yeah.
They can push that out. They can talk to all those people, so that's good. He goes on to talk about WhatsApp and Instagram like we've talked earlier, though, but I think we share the same opinion, which is like, dude, we haven't had enough time to see that happen at all.
At all.
Like, come on. Especially WhatsApp. Like, are you kidding me?
And we haven't seen Instagram falter in any way, and so we haven't seen how Facebook will react when one of their acquisitions is all of a sudden not looking like a great acquisition anymore. Do they just slash the entire workforce? Do they...
Like we've seen Google do? A lot of people were saying, why didn't someone like Google buy it?
Oh, that would have been worse.
That would have been scary. That would have been really scary, because if it doesn't do well for a second, Google's just going to be like, LOL, okay, bye.
And then they own all the patents, and they'll do something completely different with it. And that might be really cool, too.
Yeah.
But...
Google doesn't seem to necessarily care too much about what they acquire.
And Google operates on their own... in their own dimension sometimes. Like they're and it's both great and terrible sometimes, but they're thinking about things 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and they're, because they just don't really care about making money on it today, they might just let it sit there behind closed doors in development for another 10 years. Whereas with Facebook, they've been pretty clear, hey, no, the Oculus Rift for gamers is still coming. You're going to get the iterative hardware that comes on the way to us building our grand vision of it. Google doesn't always do that.
Yeah, you could
They built a self-driving car and just put it on the road.
Yeah. And it was amazing, and then they were like, okay, cool. It's like, since when have we heard anything about that? It's like obviously safe. They've totally proved that it's safe, and then they're like, all right, in the garage. And that could have easily happened with this too. We could have seen DK2 come out, or not, it's Google, who the heck knows, and then CV1, Consumer Version 1, could have come out in like 2020.
Or something.
They're just like, lol, 20 KP screen, or whatever we have by that point, who knows. One thing that he brings up, the like, oh, now we're just going to get Farmville VR and stuff like that. Like, I touched on that earlier when I was talking about the negative points. And I said, oh my god, Farmville 3D and Facebook pop-up updates everywhere. I really don't think so.
No, I think it'll be more subtle. I mean, I think what they'll do is they'll offer game developers options. Like, this is the way I could see it working. Maybe not step 1 and not step 3, where it's like family reunions are all done through Oculus VR, but like a step 1.5 or 2, where, think about in-game advertising, the way it's done now, where there might be like all of the, oh crap, I forget what game did this. Was it Battlefield 4, where they had like Coke vending machines and you couldn't knock them over? They were like the one thing in the game that wasn't destructible, and like,
I don't remember.
I don't remember what game it
Yeah,
was, but it
yeah.
was like vending machines. So in-game product placement, Facebook could offer Oculus developers, so developers for VR games, the option to build advertising into their game as a way to monetize their platform. They could throw seed funding at them if they're willing to deliver that. And this could be a way for us to, if we're willing to put up with a little bit more advertising, which I think people have proven time and time again that they'll protest about it, but much like taxes, they'll just suck it up every time. And they won't vote with their wallets until maybe we get to a breaking point, but we haven't seen it yet.
I'm interested to see what AdBlock does about this.
I'm interested to see what AdBlock does about this, but that could be a great way for us to get more VR content.
Yeah, at least for now.
And support developers
Yeah.
for maybe free to play that isn't necessarily microtransaction driven. I'm going to actually tangent for just a moment here and talk about Bravely Default. The game that I just recently started playing.
Yeah.
Would I have rather seen some like well-integrated product placement in Bravely Default versus what they've done with Sleep Points? So Sleep Point, turn-based combat, just like a Final Fantasy game, basically, except you could... Okay, I'm not going to get into the combat mechanics. So Sleep Points allow you to interrupt turn-based combat and act at any time. So you can earn them either by leaving the game on with your DS in sleep mode, plugged in, presumably, so it doesn't drain the battery, for 8 hours per sleep point, or you can buy them. And so basically you can buy the ability to, like, go until the enemy dies, kind of thing. That, to me, is a lot more obnoxious than something like a little bit of tastefully applied in-game advertising. So, like... Yeah, anyway, okay, go ahead.
And he has a point, and however they end up doing it, who knows? Personally, I would like I don't mind product placement, to be completely honest.
Adblockulus.
There's
a comment from someone in Twitch chat.
And, like, okay, another thing that Cliff Belinsky brings up is the possibility of some sort of proprietary system, which everyone freaked out about, and he's hopefully completely wrong and super off base, because that's super dumb.
Yeah.
But another thing that came out of that was the possibility of, like, maybe when you boot up your computer, you load, like, the Oculus store or something.
Right.
And the Oculus store is kind of like Steam, but has VR-capable games, so you can buy other stuff like that. And there could be other applications. That's the idea of this whole system.
Or even an Oculus store from within Steam, much like the way we've seen NVIDIA integrate their Tegra Zone store within Android that allows you to shop the Google Play Store, but a tailored version of the Google Play Store. I'd be totally okay with that.
And it makes sense because Steam's actually been Valve has been fairly recently talking about allowing different companies to have their own stores on Steam. So that makes an incredible amount of sense.
Your cynical take on that was maybe they just don't feel like managing it anymore.
Yeah, maybe they're just like, they can just do whatever the heck they want. We'll still scrape all the money and it's fine. Whether or not you think that's positive or negative, that could allow something like Oculus to have their own compatibility store essentially there. And then maybe you can, if that's a thing, maybe you could unofficially inject what was it called?
Adblockulus.
Adblockulus, yeah. Maybe you could integrate that in some way. I don't know. The Cliff Belinsky thing is really long, and I preferred other sorts of information.
All right, so Mark Zuckerberg's actual post on Facebook, I think, clarified a lot. So I'm just going to go ahead and post this.
Now, this is interesting because a massive amount of people, as far as I can tell, don't really trust Mark Zuckerberg, even if they like Facebook.
Really?
So this, despite being kind of positive for the people that may have been negative in the beginning, a lot of people have been pretty sketchy about. But it's interesting nonetheless, and hopefully we can hold them to the things that he says in here. So here we go.
Yeah, hopefully there's some accountability.
Yeah. So he starts off by saying, immersive gaming will be first, and Oculus already has big plans here that won't be changing, and we hope to accelerate. I don't even care what side of the fence you're on. That's good. Like, this has happened. We can't reverse it now. We have to take the good that we can, and that is good. We're focusing on helping Oculus build out their product and develop partnerships supporting more games, to support more games. So, again...
We're going to have to move a little faster here. It's 6.
Oh god, I didn't realize the show was essentially over already. Oculus will continue operating independently within Facebook, and they want to achieve that, blah, blah, blah. Whether or not that ends up becoming a thing or not, although right now it does seem like it's going to be, and I'm sure Carmack would have a ton to say if that doesn't stay being a thing, so we'll see how that goes. I'm trying to skip over things. There's just some... He talks about potential uses. I'm not going to directly quote this because
I already talked about it earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's
Did you
move on.
list all the potential uses?
Yeah. We talked about things like using it as a way to connect with other people. And
Yeah, but he also brings up like medical applications. And
courtside seats
Yeah,
at games, something that I've talked about that I'm really excited about with VR already.
Yep.
Okay, so
then we move on to Palmer's Reddit, and this is incredibly long and already chopped down a lot, despite the fact that we're going to be skipping a bunch of things. So I actually recommend going to his user account and checking his message log, because it is very interesting and a really easy way to track the whole conversation. He's been asked a whole bunch of questions, so these are some answers. You will not need a Facebook account to use or develop for the Rift. That will not be a thing. He has said that so far. Of course, he's no longer running the entire company, so it's kind of a problem, but I'm sure you would know. Anyways, people have been... This is a little bit messed up. Anyways, people asked if I ever see Facebook branding on anything that's not optional, I'm done. He says that's not really reasonable in a literal sense, but he understands what the guy's trying to say. I think that comment spouted from the Facebook branding on the Oculus idea,
right?
Not
Which
necessarily,
isn't happening.
Yeah, not necessarily like a Facebook style, the Oculus App Store deal, something like that. I'm not sure. That was a little bit shady, anyways. If I see any ads on anything that I've already paid for, I'm done. Palmer says, which makes a ton of sense, that's a developer decision. They're not going to be injecting things necessarily. It's not their decision. If someone wants to sell a game with built-in ads, they will have to deal with the natural consequences of you not buying it. He didn't say the you not buying it part, but yeah. Just promise me there will be no specific Facebook tie-ins. He says, I promise, which is good. He talks about it more. It's saying, would you rather me sell to someone like Microsoft or Apple so they can tear the company apart, use the pieces that we have to build their own vision of virtual reality? We talked about this earlier. One that fits their current strategy they have? Not a chance. So you can tell that he believed in this acquisition, at least some amount. The key points that he brings up too is we can make custom hardware. We brought this up earlier.
Yep.
We can afford to hire everyone we need. We brought this up earlier. We're going to talk about this a little bit further on. And we can make huge investments in content. So the only thing that I've really seen them do in a big form was EVR. Eve Virtual Reality,
Yep.
Valkyrie, which looks amazing. So hopefully there's more of that kind of stuff in the future. Another thing that you should go read into is Carmack's tweets. Again, I guess I'm not going to jump into these too in depth because this show could probably go on for 4 hours. And I'll just talk about it more in the after party, so be sure to show up for that. I like Carmack. Carmack is a really good guy, and one of the things that he posts up on there, let me go to his Twitter real fast, was... I would expect Facebook not to exert any overt control over Oculus unless Oculus fumbles badly a few times, at which point they should. That kind of makes sense. And he asks people, what are the hazards? What should be done to guard against them? And what are the tests of failure? Blog and I'll read. So if you guys have opinions, talk about it. And they will pay attention. That's very cool. Anyways, jumping forward off of Carmack's tweets, we talked about some of those earlier on as well. Oculus hires Michael Abrash. This is huge, and this... I think, honestly, there was already a twist towards the positive.
Yeah.
And then this happened, and then everyone was just like...
So this was today.
Yeah! Like, huge positive outcome when this happened. Some people freaking out, saying that now Valve is ruined, but I don't think Valve ever intended on releasing anything anyways.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a lot more sense that he's now working for Oculus.
So he was working on VR at Valve,
Yeah.
just for context.
Yeah. Abrash and Carmack worked together in the past on some really big things, and they're both very happy that they're coming back together, which is really cool. They met in 1994, 1995, and worked on stuff like Quake, which is kind of a huge deal. I'm going to skip over a bunch of this again.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and post the link here. You guys should definitely check this out.
Yeah, it's the thread on Oculus's actual website. So... now people have been talking about canceling their pre-orders, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
Next topic or Riot, starting in 1 minute. You guys got another minute to do that because of the delay. Any more of that, you will be perma-banned, and we are not lifting bans anymore, so give it a rest.
Do you want to cancel your terms or sorry, do you want to cancel your order? There's terms that we can post that'll be in this doc. Are you sure you want to cancel though? There's been a lot of people trying to cancel and then trying to stop their cancel so they can keep their spot in line. You can cancel your pre-order before it's shipped, so you have a while still. So don't worry about canceling it immediately. If you're thinking about it, you can kind of sit on that topic or just go and cancel it. Although careful, because it's an email cancellation, it's not like an automated one, so it might take a little while for them to reply. Just hold in there.
Yeah, and you'll lose your spot in line.
And you'll lose your spot in line. Something interesting to bring up is the photo of their like Facebook kind of thing that they had at their old HQ, which if you zoom in really closely says, warning, Facebook may cause loss of time, poor work ethic, obesity, social disorders, and possible interference of destiny. Use at your own risk. And then the Facebook thumbs up, which is hilarious.
Goes to show you just what their attitude was towards Facebook, the website, if not Facebook, the company.
Yeah. Oatmeal made a joke. We're basically at the end now. Oatmeal made a joke about this apparently a year ago, which I'd never seen until earlier today, which was talking about strapping Facebook to your face, essentially. If you actually go look at it. There you go.
There we go.
So he talks about essentially like how
The world around me is so very, very loud. It begs me to slow down. To sit down. Introducing Facebook for your face. I like it.
And then saying eventually we'll just like lay down and die, which is kind of hilarious. And then, yeah,
Oatmeal.
I'll talk about it more in the after party, but that's essentially what happened.
You're going to talk about this more on the after party?
I just skipped like probably
Okay,
half
so
my
when the
stuff.
news first came out, we knee-jerk reaction, we created this shirt, and it wasn't ready because District
I still
Lines
think
is
it kind of applies.
kind of slow sometimes. So here's the shirt. So it just says it's an Oculus Eye. So it's not even the Oculus Eye. It's just somewhat similar because we don't want any trademark infringing things on a shirt like this. So it just says, I dislike Facebook. In the context of the stuff that's happened over the last couple of days. So District Lines took a while for this shirt to come out, and so by now, so much positive news has come out around it that I think neither Luke nor I are feeling quite as down about the whole thing.
Well, now it's not being completely rebranded. Anyways.
Yeah, so now, like there were concerns like they were going to rebrand it based on that New York Times article, which still hasn't been pulled down.
No.
Which is interesting to me. Anyway,
Yeah.
So if you still feel strongly about the whole thing, if we sell like 50 of them, then I'll still print it. Otherwise, I'm going to cancel the order, and I think that cost me like 15% restocking fee. But it doesn't feel as relevant to me anymore.
Things have literally changed.
Yes, a
but
lot has changed since we created this shirt.
another way to look at it, I'm probably still interested in kind of getting one, is I still like Oculus, and I still don't like Facebook. I disliked Facebook before this whole situation, and I still dislike Facebook. That doesn't change.
So if you guys want it, order it. If you don't, we're not making it. So there you go.
Doesn't matter. Okay, and now everyone can rejoice because
The Oculus topic is over, and we're moving into our sponsors for today. So sponsor number one. Hey, oh, that's the wrong one. Well, it's still Intel, but slightly more different. So, Linus Media Group is going to PAX East. It's going to be Luke and Brandon, and this is mostly just a call out. Did I say Brandon? What?
I
Wait,
can
what?
probably go talk to them there.
To where? Who? What?
Oculus, they'll be
Oh.
at PAX East.
Yes, they will. So Luke and Brandon will be there covering the show. There will be, actually, I feel this is a good opportunity to promote this. There will be a build-off between the one and only Slick PC and the one and only Paul's Hardware. So Paul from Newegg.tv, they will be doing a PC build showdown, and I can't promise that there won't be any hijinks or shenanigans throughout the entire thing. Both the Linus Media Group and Newegg TV crews will be filming the event, and it will be streaming live on Twitch TV due to a partnership between Newegg and Twitch TV, and of course, we love Twitch TV as well. We happen to be streaming there right now, although I don't have to endorse Twitch TV in any way. Maybe I'll just say negative things about them, just in case John is watching right now. Twitch sucks, John. Anyway, so Twitch will be streaming it live, which means that there will be no opportunity for any hijinks to be not streamed.
Hi. Now everyone knows that something. Anyways.
No, maybe nothing will happen. Maybe I'm just trying to get them to watch so that I get my big fat paycheck from Intel. It could be that overt. So anyway, guys, stay tuned. Our other sponsor is Hotspot Shield, and Hotspot Shield has kind of an interesting thing going on right now. They want you to design their new slogan. So I'm just going to see if I can actually find it. Dang it, I should have had the link ready before, but Hotspot Shield is allowing you to come up with a new slogan, and what they're doing is they are giving away a bunch of elite accounts as a way to promote the contest. So Hotspot Shield is the easy way to set up a VPN. Their elite service in particular is the one we recommend. The complaints that I've seen about Hotspot Shield on the forum or wherever else tend to be about their ad-supported free version. And let's just do a brief rundown of how a VPN works and why you have to pay for one. Because it's basically triplicating the amount of data being transferred back and forth. If you go to a website, instead of Hotspot Shield, or instead of you just communicating directly to the website, well, I guess duplicating, sorry. Okay, so instead of you just communicating directly to the website, there's an intermediary hub, and that's going to be Hotspot Shield's server. So you send data to them, they forward it to the website, and then it goes that way back again. So sorry, doubling the data being sent back and forth. So that means there is an actual bandwidth cost associated with a VPN. That's all there is to it. A VPN that is free will be ad-supported or supported in some other way. So unless you're paying for it, you are going to be stuck with some kind of intrusive ad service. So that's why I recommend using offer code Linus to get 20% off Elite. It's super easy to set up, and VPNs allow you to hide who you are and where you're from the websites that you're visiting. It's because all the traffic looks to them as if it's coming directly from Hotspot Shield. It allows you to circumvent geographical restrictions in this way. So if you wanted to watch, US content and you're in the UK, or UK content, you're in the US, all you do is configure Hotspot Shield to tell the website where you're from, somewhere other than where you're actually from. You can go ahead and get around things like firewalls or censorship. So that's one of the things that's really good for. And I have finally located the link for the Redesign the Slogan contest. So you can go ahead, and it's actually on Facebook. Lol.
Someone is also telling me that the contest is apparently over.
No, I think it runs till April 4th. All right. Something like that.
Well, then I guess they're wrong. I don't know. I just saw someone in the Twitch chat be like, the contest is over, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, okay, well, they told me April 4th. I guess if it's over, tell you what. If it's over, guys, let me know, and I'll arrange some giveaway elite codes anyway. And we'll do like a giveaway on the forum or something.
Cool.
So there you go. My misunderstanding could turn into free Hotspot Shield accounts. We actually did a giveaway a little while ago. So guys, try out the trial. You don't actually have to start paying for it right away. You can just get a trial at bit.ly/hsshare, and if you like it, then let us know, and we'll see if we can arrange for something to happen, even if I might have totally screwed that up. All right, so moving into our next topic here that is not Oculus. Titan Z. Dun, dun, dun.
The card that everyone was super unhappy wasn't a gaming card.
You know what? Okay, Titan Z is moderately interesting. And people are upset that NVIDIA is branding this as a gaming card. But, okay, yes, it says GeForce. Yes, it has Titan branding, the most recent of which to contain that branding was marketed sort of as a gaming card, but this is not a gaming card. Jensen came right out and said this is for people who want a supercomputer next to their desk. It doesn't make any sense for a gamer to buy a Titan Z. He didn't say that part because, I think his statement was more along the lines of, if gamers want to buy it, then great. Then great. But, Titan's been selling like hotcakes, but it's mostly intended for CUDA developers. The only advantage of Titan over something like GTX 780 Ti, so we're talking about the single GPU versions, is the double precision performance of Titan, which is only useful in a production environment, a coding environment. Double precision doesn't mean your games run more accurately. No game takes advantage of...
obviously aim better.
Yeah, you'll aim better. So you combine that with aimbot.
And a sniper button.
And, flames painted on the side of your PC.
Why not? Speed holes?
Speed holes. So, Titan Z is not a gaming card. Why is it $3,000? It's $3,000 because the kind of work it is intended to be used for would allow a budget of $3,000 to spend on a compute card for it. That's why. It has 12 gigs of RAM, so 6 gigs per GPU, and it's intended to allow a higher density of GK110 graphics cores to be installed in a single machine in a desktop-type work environment. It is not a gaming card, but because it happens to be GeForce and it will use GeForce drivers, you can game on it if you want a quad SLI GK110 experience. You'll just have to pay more. But that same experience would be available to you if you bought 4 GTX 780 Ti's for a grand total of $2,800. And that would cost you $6,000 in Titan Z's. And you will get the same performance unless you really need the 6 gigs of frame buffer per card, in which case you could still buy 4 Titans and water cool them and spend like $1,500 less anyway. It's not a practical solution. It wasn't intended to be. The internet needs to get over it. There's a couple things. So for context, blah, 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 blah. Old Titan was something. I think Anantech is estimating that it'll be clocked at around 700 megahertz based on the gigaflops or teraflops or whatever that NVIDIA is quoting. So that would be well below the performance of the Titan Black. So not only would that other solution be cheaper, it would also perform better.
Considerably faster.
This is something that really just kind of... part of me is outraged, and part of me is like, yeah, this makes sense. ASUS has a gaming-branded B85 board. So this is an Intel LGA 1150 board. It supports, 4 DIMM slots, supports dual graphics cards. It's got better onboard sound and it's got like a gamer-friendly color scheme.
It's not cold.
But it is not overclockable. The B85 chipset does not support overclocking at all. So I would love to see you guys hit us up with a straw poll here. I'm going to post this in the Twitch
current
chat.
audience is going to like this too much.
I don't think they will either, but
yeah.
I have okay, our discussion though while we wait for the straw poll results
is that there's probably a large amount of people that aren't going to overclock and want to buy a gaming board.
Is your CPU overclocked?
Actually, technically right now it is.
Okay.
Owned. Well,
mine's not.
I know, and mine wasn't not that long ago.
It doesn't really matter right now.
My graphics card is definitely overclocked.
When Star Citizen launches, I will overclock the snot out of my CPU.
My graphics card is overclocked like crazy, but I don't no, not my CPU. Not
so
much.
There you go. That's the cold hard truth is not every gamer is an overclocker and enthusiast, and for so long overclocking boards were lumped in with gaming boards because the assumption was that gamers were tweakers, but most of the hardcore gamers I know are not that into the hardware.
Well, my
They're hardcore gamers, not like...
My reason is I have a profile locked in for my CPU. That I have multiple profiles actually. I have my stock, my low overclock, medium overclock, and ridiculous overclock. And I have it currently on a medium, which is not really pushing it that hard.
Right.
Because my ridiculous one is insane, but when Star Citizen starts really pushing my computer, I'll just be like, click, lol. Yeah. But then the lifespan of that CPU is going to go, woo! Yeah. Just because I'm pushing it way too hard, and I know that.
All right, NVIDIA looks beyond Maxwell. This was posted on Hardware Canucks. So actually for a while they were saying Volta was coming after Maxwell, but now they have removed Volta from the roadmap and replaced it instead with Pascal, which is going to deliver unified memory, 3D memory, and NVLink. And I'm actually not sure which is the most interesting out of all of these things. So 3D memory has been talked about for a while. It's going to be instrumental with Pascal. NVIDIA claims they will be able to provide several times greater bandwidth, which is going to be incredibly important for resolutions beyond 1080p. They're saying more than twice the memory capacity and quadruple the energy efficiency. And when you look how energy efficient Maxwell is already, we could be looking at some seriously powerful hardware in very small spaces, powering cloud gaming experiences within the home or whatever else the case may be. Talked about that a lot last week. The other big one to me is NVLink. So here's a little picture That's also courtesy of Hardware Canucks. Thank you, Hardware Canucks, for posting this. I love you, Mike. Showing what NVLink will be exactly. So we're not necessarily expecting NVLink to replace... Oh, you guys can't see that part of the graphic. I'm sorry. There we go. Really? Okay, well, whatever. My mouse... My mouse is here. So there's a little PCIe link labeled here. So it's not going to replace PCI Express or anything, but NVLink will be an efficient way for the GPUs to communicate with each other. So it would replace the current SLI bridge, much like AMD has done with XDMA on their R9 series cards, on the very, very high end, the R9 290 series cards. But this will augment PCI Express, allowing the GPUs to communicate with each other. And again, not just for Crossfire or SLI type dual graphics functionality, but instead for compute functionality, giving them a much more efficient means of working together. NVIDIA is saying this is going to be twice as efficient as PCI Express 3.0, and they call it feeding the appetite for big data. So... you know, how much better could graphics cards work together in terms of frame pacing or whatever else if they had super high-speed interconnects, if they had, you know, double the memory bandwidth or several times the memory bandwidth to work with?
Well, also, hopefully this will help with just chopping and general crappiness that comes along with multiple GPU setups.
Yep.
So that maybe we will all kind of embrace it more, and that's probably what they're going for.
Yeah,
so
I would certainly think
hopefully
so.
way better.
All right, so more bad news for Bitcoin. VercureX has just gone insolvent. That was about 4 days ago. So they're basically, the funny thing about what they're doing is at least they're being a bit more communicative about it than Mt. Gox was. But they're saying, okay, well, we can either just shut down now because we're like out of Bitcoins, or we can try to continue operating and then like pay that back slowly. But if we just shut down now, we're just not going to be able to pay it back at all. And then one of the advantages of Bitcoins up till now is that taxation on them hasn't been very clear. Well, new IRS rules in the US, anyway, are now considering Bitcoin property. So now it's property, so you will pay taxes on it in much the same way as you would another investment or capital asset such as, well, property, so land or anything else like that. So a payment made using virtual currency will be subject to information reporting to the same extent as any other payment made in property. I don't know if you guys know this, but technically, if here in Canada anyway, if you make a deal with someone that is a barter agreement, so if I say, I'll fix your computer to a plumber, and the plumber says, okay, I'll fix your sink, we should both be reporting and paying taxes correctly on the face value of what those services would have been. The laws are very clear about this, so cryptocurrency has existed on this sort of, we don't know what to do with this cloud for a little while. That's not the thing that's going to be happening anymore. All right, which isn't to say that it will necessarily be enforced everywhere. It just means that you'll be legally responsible for it not having been enforced.
Yeah.
Portal's coming to Shield, which there's not a whole lot else to really say about this other than it's happening now. NVIDIA's been saying, hey guys, we're going to deliver last-gen console-grade experiences on handheld. They've been saying that for, well, it's happening now. Because Portal, that's a last-gen console game, and Valve will be porting it to Android. So their blog post is actually pretty darn interesting. You guys should have a read of it later on. I'm just going to post this in the Twitch chat. Boom! You guys should check that out. Very, very cool. Not that relevant to me, or really to anyone in general who owns a Shield necessarily, because you already have GameStream, which is already definitely a good enough experience to play Portal with. I played through the entirety of Portal 2 on NVIDIA Shield using GameStream. I didn't touch my PC for the entire game. Actually quite enjoyed it. I just finished it. Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Obviously, nothing compares to Portal 1.
It's good though. Like I couldn't have really asked for much more.
Nope, good game.
And then the Steam Workshop makes
Did
it
enjoy,
so epic.
But
because you can just download custom maps.
I don't even really enjoy solving portal puzzles that much.
You just like the storyline?
I just really enjoyed the atmosphere and the humor and the story. GLaDOS is a fantastic character, with or without Caroline. So yeah, Really, really enjoyed it. No one wants to hear about ancient games, though. More about Shield. So here are the release notes of their upcoming firmware update. Or, well, oh, what the hell is this? Oh, I guess this is old release notes where you can stay tuned in a few days. There are going to be some new fantastic release notes because Shield in the short 9 or 10 months or however long it's been on the market has evolved significantly from kind of a nifty Android gaming device that had this weird like PC streaming feature in beta that actually worked pretty well at launch but is better now to something that is a very compelling gaming platform compared to pretty much anything else that you could buy from a handheld gaming perspective. So now, on top of GameStream, on top of the Tegra Zone store where you can buy Tegra optimized games, GameStream works outside of the house. NVIDIA has said on the conference call that we were... No, you weren't on it. I was on it.
Nope.
You had to talk to Newegg TV. Ha! Anyway, I was talking to NVIDIA while he was talking to Newegg TV.
That's just even. I'm
saddest
sorry,
thing
but
ever.
like, that just doesn't even sound cool.
So NVIDIA's saying you're going to need a strong mobile network connection, or whether you're on someone else's Wi-Fi, like if I'm at the office here and I want to game stream something at my house, you're going to need 5 megabit up and down in both places for optimal communication between the devices. Or, I mean, they've even said you could do it on, 4G LTE. But you're going to need 5 megabit up and down on both ends for a good experience. And the way it works is pretty similar to grid beta. Have you tried that yet?
Grid beta?
Yeah.
No.
I asked
I've
you
never-
last week. It's on your Shield already. Oh no, I wiped it before I gave it to you. Okay, check it out. Try grid beta.
I also have
it's
to
cool.
install that access point though.
So streaming from NVIDIA's servers down in California to here works. Like you can play Street Fighter. So anyway, GameStream works outside of the house. Wake on LAN and remote login support is coming. So this is a great feature for people who don't want to leave their PC on all the time. Or like the number of times I've been in bed and I'm like, yeah, I want to fire something. Oh, my computer's asleep. Get up and go turn it on and log in and go back to bed and play my game. It's like, well, if I wanted to get up, I would have gone and played on my computer. So that's being addressed.
Can
Nope.
you install mobile TeamViewer on your?
Yeah, I could, but
And
I'm
then just like boop, 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 boop,
lazy.
boop.
And that wouldn't help with Wake on LAN. All right, notebook GPU support is coming. So you'll be able to game stream from your GeForce Kepler-based GPU laptop, which is very exciting for folks who have notebooks. Bluetooth keyboard and mouse support is coming in console mode. The new Tegra Zone has been redesigned to help you find compatible games even better, although I almost never touch Android games on it. They all kind of suck. I mean, no offense to Android games, but like compared to PC games that I can play on the thing, my Shield almost never leaves my home. I just play PC games on it. It's going to get Android 4.4 KitKat, better FPS and bitrate controls, much like what Valve has been adding to in-home streaming. You're going to be able to say, okay, I want this bitrate, I want this FPS, and you're going to have much more granular control. They have a better gamepad mapper with a more intuitive UI, so you can take Android games if you play them, and then you can remap your buttons to the screen in an even better way. And for a limited time, it's only $200. So for a month, NVIDIA Shield is $200, and at that price, I think it's a great value. I would buy one. I'll say that outright.
I've even just watched videos on it. It's a lot easier to manage, especially while you're in bed, than your phone.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about this. Is it a tablet?
Yeah.
It's a
use
tablet.
it like a tablet because I was able to just like kind of prop it up.
And you've never even been sold on the whole tablet concept.
Well, I'm still not sold on the whole tablet concept.
Okay, well,
but
you're
another thing that I'm really excited for is when Hearthstone gets moved to tablets
Right.
and phones, so that I can install it on my Shield. That'll make Shield so much better. Because
Right.
Hearthstone, I've always been like, this is really cool, but I want to be playing something a little bit heavier while I'm at my computer instead
Right.
of this, because this is just weird.
Whereas if you're like just in bed,
If I'm just like, I'm chilling but can't sleep yet, it's like, all right, play a card game like Hearthstone. Hearthstone's fun. It's just
freaking
when I'm
awesome.
sitting at my computer, I'm just like,
I love Shield. For $200, that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so NVIDIA also talked a lot about DirectX 12 on the call, and some of this stuff was pretty relevant. So I teased this at the beginning of the show, but Mantle support is not coming to NVIDIA GPUs near you, no matter how open AMD makes the platform. And I don't care anymore. The Mantle hype train, like I think it was To me, both, you know what? I'm going to criticize both of them right now. AMD really mismanaged the Mantle hype train in much the same way that NVIDIA has mismanaged the G-Sync hype train. Both really cool technologies, looked really important,
No
talked about
follow-through.
way too early.
No follow-through.
No follow-through yet. I mean, G-Sync monitors are coming, but G-Sync monitors need to be ubiquitous. Every monitor needs to be a G-Sync monitor. Anything branded to gamers needs to be a G-Sync monitor, and pricing needs to be reasonable, and we might see that in a year or 2 years. And then Mantle, same thing. It needs to be everywhere, or it's not going to make a ton of sense.
It needs to be on games at launch.
Yes. So, NVIDIA made some really interesting points about DirectX 12. So 79% of the DirectX 11 GPUs, according to the Steam survey, support DirectX 12, while no, it was less than that. I thought it was like 11% support Mantle or something. Oh no, 39% of the DirectX 11 GPUs. No, that math isn't right. Okay, these are old notes. I'm sorry. They updated the numbers, but it was like much, much lower support Mantle. And they're saying Starswarm is better with the new 780 Ti DirectX drivers than the 290X with Mantle. So there's a new driver coming.
Are those really properly compared GPUs?
They are not quite. But it depends on the pricing of 290X.
Yeah,
and it's
but
enough
only
better than,
in North America is that really
hold
happening.
on. It's enough better than 290X that even at MSRP, they're about equal in terms of price to performance. So if DirectX 12 or even DirectX 11 updated driver can be equal to what AMD is already delivering with Mantle in Starswarm...
I was saying the other way around, though. 780 Ti is unproportionally expensive, is it not?
Nope. Because it performs a little better and it's a little more expensive than a 290X. 290X is $600. 780 Ti is around $730.
Is it really everywhere?
Yeah. No, this is just based on the lowest prices I could find for both of them on Newegg.
Yeah, but what
That's
I'm saying
MSRP though. That's not jacked up prices.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay.
Everything's okay.
Okay.
So if they can deliver the same performance with the new DirectX 11 driver that AMD can deliver with Mantle on an admittedly Mantle optimized benchmark, and DirectX 12 is going to improve things even further, then, yeah. Unreal Engine 4 will support DirectX 12, and NVIDIA says they've been working on DirectX 12 for 4 years. So this isn't a knee-jerk reaction from Microsoft like ignoramuses like us might have assumed when we went, oh, I guess they're talking about DirectX 12 so early because they're reacting to Mantle. Nope, not so much. So there you go, guys. Whatever ends up happening, we're probably all going to be gaming on Windows for the foreseeable future. Yeah. Unless, I mean, a lot of good news came out about OpenGL last week as well. Or somehow Mantle figures things out, or I don't know. I think we're probably going to be pretty much done here. Let's do 2 more. So our Better Than Bieber segment this week, we need music that goes along with this, is that the Titanic 2 is coming to, actually, no, it's real. It's not a movie, it's not a game.
This was kind of weird.
New cruise ship to be built by eccentric billionaire Clive Palmer and will be as accurate to the experience of the original Titanic as makes sense, or probably more so. So the third-class passengers will be in like cramped, horrible rooms below water level, and the first-class passengers will be in these opulent, beautiful, mahogany-covered rooms, just like the original Titanic. Palmer did, when asked about unsinkability, hold on, let's just see if when asked about unsinkability, he did not go as far as to call it unsinkable, a jinx famously applied to the original vessel. Anything will sink if you put a hole in it, Palmer joked. And they are expected to set sail in 2017. The ship is currently being built in China.
It's kind of, I don't even know what to think about it.
If you were gonna go on a cruise...
No. I don't care at all.
Okay, if you were gonna go on a cruise, would you go on a cruise on a Titanic replica?
No.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna pay so little that I'm gonna get stuck in that crapshoot underwater level, and I'm gonna hate it, and I'm not gonna care about the experience of living in, like, essentially a jail cell at the bottom of a boat. And I'm just going to be like, this is super dumb.
Is it that different from working here?
No.
All right, really important law change in the UK. Disc media ripping will be legalized this summer in the UK. This was posted on the forum by Matthewsis Sanzo, and the UK government has published a guide informing consumers that an upcoming revision of copyright law will legalize CD and DVD ripping for personal use. Good. That wasn't even a slow clap. I'm sorry if that came across
That was
wrong.
very satisfied.
That was like,
clap.
this should have happened 100 billion years ago. The original source is Torrent Freak here. It's coming into effect in the June-July time frame, and the law is still very clear that if you make a backup, it is for personal use. It is not for you to put on a, server that you rent somewhere and then give everyone and your dog access to. That's not what this law change is intended for. You can still sell your physical media, but you will be expected to delete all of the backup copies. You're still very much expected to buy media, but you will be allowed to play it back on any device you own.
This is so weird right now. Some of the laws going around about this, because you buy a song and then it's the only medium you can play it on
iTunes.
Is iTunes, or if you buy a physical copy of the disc, in a lot of places it's good luck, carry around a CD player with you. Because they're no, you can't copy it to your MP3 player because that's another copy, and it's what the hell is even happening?
Yeah.
So I'm happy that something like this stepped in.
I mean, people do it anyway.
It's gonna happen.
But you might as well legalize it so we can stop seeing discussion about it anymore.
And what's his name's mom going to jail for $80 billion because her son downloaded 5 songs? This is just stupid.
Well, that's different. We're not talking piracy.
Not downloaded, then copied off of his own thing. It doesn't matter.
Right.
The same thing happens.
Yeah, we're tired of this whole thing. And
people that didn't actually do anything wrong.
I mean, I think there's still going to be some debate. Because what about families? Is my wife allowed to listen to my song?
Ooh. But then, your wife is allowed to wear your shirt.
Yes. But the law says it's for personal use, and they specifically say not to give friends access. Is my wife my friend? Are my kids my friends? I don't know. I mean, Valve is opening up family sharing for games.
Which is really cool.
But that doesn't mean that this law allows, if I play this song at a party, is that a public demonstration? Did I own the rights for that? All that stuff is still very gray area in terms of ownership. But, because they specifically say if you have a NAS, you can't give your friends access to it to play back this media.
Yeah.
But, my family is going to have access to my NAS.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's weird.
All right. Well, I think that is pretty much it for the show this week. I was planning to do my first impressions of the HTC One M8, but I think we've somewhat run out of time. I will have a review coming. So far, I'm actually pretty impressed with some things that I wasn't expecting to be impressed by. I have 42% battery on it, having used it quite heavily. Normally, my old one runs out during the show, because I'm using navigation to go run errands on my way back from NCIX, and I'm on my phone constantly at NCIX because I don't bring out my computer there to read the document for WAN show and all that kind of stuff. And I have 42% right now, which is pretty impressive. The camera is actually quite strong. In spite of the lack
People are asking for straw poll results, but do you even have that link still?
Yeah, I probably do. Actually, I'll grab that. Sorry about that, guys. The camera is really, really strong. The build quality feels even more solid. I think it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag in terms of how people perceive it. When I went to the Bell store last night to get a Nano... Okay, I guess I'm doing my first impressions of the M8. All right, so when I went to the Bell store last night... I said I needed a nano SIM, and they were like, "Oh, why do you need one of those? Did you get an iPhone?" And I was like, "No, it's for this." And I pulled it out of my pocket. Everyone in the store who worked there was like, and ran over and came and looked at it. And the reaction was very positive there to the metal seamless backing. Whereas some people are complaining that it's too slick and almost plasticky looking. I showed it to someone at NCIX today who was like, "Oh, well, why would they take metal and make it look and feel as much like plastic as they possibly could. Overall, the construction and the flex of the phone is a very strong point for it. So the metal construction is definitely doing something. It's just whether or not you prefer that or not is up to you. It is a little bit bigger, which I'm finding a little bit awkward right now as I go through that transition period again, but it's only about 0.3 inches. The voice quality on it is outstanding. I usually comment on voice quality in my reviews, and I kind of say, well, it's a phone. You put one end to your face and the other end to someone else's face, and there's a wireless link between them or something. And it sounds all right. But this one really blew me away with how good people sound through the handset. Blink feed has... I quite like Sense 6.0 so far. It's really subtle. It doesn't feel that different from the stock Google UI, really. And maybe part of it is that I started out with Sense, whereas a lot of people started out with other skins. But I quite like it. It doesn't get in my way at all, and they've added a few little subtle things, like the double tap to wake up is there now. There are some gesture controls that right now are a little bit hit or miss. So, for example, if you lift it up, and then press the volume button. There you go. That launched the camera, but it doesn't work 100% of the time. Camera modes, again, very, very cool. So you can do things like, here, I'm going to show you guys this because it's actually like quite neat. Okay, so here I'm going to get Jake the dog behind you there. Okay, and then I'm going to get up and refocus that so you guys can actually see this. So some of the... I'm just going to point the mic at myself. So some of the camera effects that you can do are kind of neat. So let's just see what the... And there we go. All right, so here's a picture of this guy. So we're going to go ahead and edit the picture. So their refocusing feature, it's not perfect, but check it out. So I could focus on Jake the dog if I felt like it. There you go. And it detects reasonably well what's in the foreground with those dual cameras in the front. That's kind of neat. You can only really apply one effect at a time, which I was a little bit disappointed with. But you can go and you can apply like effects to the background. Obviously, they're going to need to add more than 4 of them to make this worthwhile as a feature. But I mean, we saw them add more things with their gallery viewing features in the past. Some of the stuff is just kind of goofy. Like, let's put like blossoms all over him or something. But this is neat. So they have kind of like a parallax effect. So you can see a little... It's mostly faked, but it still is like kind of neat. You can see the boxes behind him are kind of like stuck to his head there a little bit. So there's that. And then I haven't actually tried touch up yet, but let's do anti-shine. Yeah, that's a face. Okay, done. I don't know if that did anything. Okay, well, either way, I think the biggest challenge... Whoops, we're out of focus. I think the biggest challenge for the M8 is going to be the price, because a year ago or 2 years ago, $700 for a flagship phone was like, okay, that's how much a flagship phone costs. Whereas now, with the Nexus 5 at $350 for the equivalent memory model, you better be delivering $350 of additional value. And the fact that it's missing wireless charging, to me, is a huge knock against it, especially because we're still using micro USB, we're still stuck with this standard, and the micro USB port recently failed on my One, which I've only had for about a year.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
Micro USB ports failing strikes again for Linus because he has like the worst luck ever, or he's a terrible person, or whatever your perception of micro USB might be. It doesn't work very well for me, and wireless charging is a really good way to not have to wear out the connectors on your phone unnecessarily. The screen is absolutely beautiful, but we've come to expect that from HTC. Like, it's really good. Even though the pixels per inch, the actual pixel density is slightly lower than the old one because of the larger screen and 1080p resolution, it looks absolutely beautiful. It's extremely snappy. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say for now, so there you go.
All right.
Oh, I like their new sound scheme.
Sound scheme?
Yeah, like the noises it makes when you like do things. Bloop, bloop,
Oh,
bloop,
okay,
bloop, bloop.
yeah.
Like Samsung's like super stupid one.
Yeah.
HTC's was always okay. I like the new one even better.
Cool.
Thank you guys very much for tuning into the WAN Show this week. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. WAN Show Oculus Edition coming to a theater near you. If you thought this was great and you need to see more news on Oculus, maybe we can do a full feature-length Oculus WAN show, and we
Well,
can...
I'm going to be talking about it in the afterword because we only actually got through the like what happened part. We didn't even get to do the our thoughts part. So I'm going to be talking about a bunch of stuff in the after party. Pretty much the entire after party is going to be about Oculus. So if you want to see anything that's not about Oculus,
Peace out.
don't bother show up.
Guys, here's the
100%.
straw poll result that we talked about earlier.
I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm interested too. I posted it in the thread, but I haven't actually clicked it yet. There we go.
I'm assuming I
So
clicked the
results.
wrong
All right, so not overclocked is 39%. Look at that. Hand overclocked greater than 1 gigahertz is 22%. Auto overclocked is 17%. So both of those folks will not really be able to do anything with a B series chipset. Hand overclocked greater than 500 megahertz, hand overclocked, and underclocked. So 40% of you won't give any cares about a B85 board that has all the gaming-centric features without any of the overclocking-centric features, even though those two things have been one and the same for so long. Fascinating.
Yeah, that is actually really interesting.
Because I still want the option so that I can...
And I still do it. I just don't necessarily run it all the time. I just
Yeah.
switch my profile fairly actively.
I just moved to IVE, which I've never overclocked before, so I'm gonna be playing around with that once I take my system home.
Right.
Oh, my personal rig update is done being edited. It's half an hour long. Did I tell you how long it was? It's more than half an hour.
I expected it would be at least.
It's like 35 minutes, and it has the most B-roll we've ever shot for a video.
Yeah. What was the data size on that again?
Hey, Brandon, are you still here? How many gigs of B-roll did you shoot of my system? 86 gigs of B-roll. And that's in ProRes 1080p. It is going to be our most beautiful video ever. Something to note, actually, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but if you go back and look at our last couple of Corsair case reviews, we are using a new recording setup. It's still on the Sony FS700, but it's actually using an external recorder that allows us, instead of recording at 1080p, to record at 4K to the internal recorder and then downsample to 1080p with a much better codec that retains a lot more of the image information. So we're using ProRes now instead of AVC HD. I personally noticed a big difference in the sharpness and detail of the footage, but I haven't really seen anyone comment about it, so you guys should let me know if you actually noticed my... How much did that stupid thing cost? Yeah! 2,500 bucks. Apparently nobody even noticed.
Awesome.
But we're not quite at the limit of its capability. There's a firmware update coming that will allow us to record in 4K, and then we will start releasing all of our videos in 4K. So yeah. Yeah!
That's been coming for so long, though.
I know. I bought a 4K capable camera a year and a half ago.
And it's still not able to actually do it.
And still not able to actually... Well, it could be if I was willing to spend like $9,000 on Sony's solution, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
No?
Like, not even as good, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not as flexible.
Yeah.
So that's stupid. All right. Peace out, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.